Okay, so it's recording now. I'm going to start the broadcast. You ready to go?
Okay, I'm ready. Ready to rock and roll.
Here we go.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Ramon from smallbiztechnology.com. Really excited and happy to have you join us on today's webinar with Pierre DeBois, and he's with Zimana, which is one of the best analytics companies in the planet. He'll tell you more about himself and what he does in a bit. But today it's very exciting because analytics is very important. Analytics is all about the numbers behind the things we're doing. We have a link in Facebook, a link in Twitter, a link in our email marketing on our websites. How do we measure and know the impact of what's happening, that it's not just going to just our moms and dads and grandmothers, but that real people, as in our business prospects and others, are watching or listening to what we're producing. So I'm really happy to have Pierre with us today to talk to us and help us understand all about why analytics are important to our businesses, to our small businesses, to our big businesses, and how we can empower our businesses better through analytics. So Pierre, without further ado, take it away. Tell us a bit about yourself real quick and what you do as a man, what you do there, and then please dive into your presentation and help us understand more about the power of analytics. Thank you so much, Pierre, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ramon. That's a very gracious introduction. Good evening, everyone. My name is Pierre DeBois. I'm the founder of Zimana, which is a small business consultancy based in Brooklyn, New York. And what I do with clients is a lot of times clients are having a little bit of difficulty with either Google Analytics, their social media analytics, and trying to make sense of the data that they have and try to derive some sort of marketing strategy. And so what I do is basically sit down and do a lot of analysis with the client, a lot of one-on-one, and also dig into the data itself and either help the client reach their business objective, which maybe in most cases is some form of marketing online, or in some cases it may be a combination of marketing online or offline. When Ramon asked me to put this together, I tried to kind of think about a little bit about what are some of the hang-ups that a business typically runs into for web analytics. And we're going to take it from the approach of a small business that, here we go. I apologize a little bit. We're going to go, here we go. For a small business that is trying to figure out what to do once they have the analytics installed on their websites. So hopefully this will be a very informative webinar for you. We'll gladly take questions at the end. We'll try to keep some sort of balance between talking a little bit about features and a little bit on the technicality, but just enough just to let you know what the value is. That's pretty much the approach that we're going to take with this webinar. So without further ado, just a quick overview. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about what is web analytics and why your business basically needs it, and setting some best practices with the analytics to get some quick analysis that may help you for your business, whether it's marketing online or just trying to make some sort of strategic decisions. And we'll talk a little bit about that along the way. And then a few resources and ideas to help you as you continue to use web analytics beyond adding the JavaScript code. So first couple of things here. Web analytics, and I'm pretty sure most of you probably have heard this a little times, but just the short of it, basically it's a business intelligence tool meant to help small businesses get an idea of the traffic that arrives to a website. And the content that you have on that website helps to, plus the data helps to kind of determine basically how people are basically receiving your business. I'm going to explain to you why that's so. On screen, I'm mentioning about a survey that was done by Experian. Experian did a very great report called the Digital Reporter, and it was talking about benchmarks for 2011, and one of the things that they did in this survey was to look at how customers were responding to all sorts of different types of digital marketing. And one of the things that came about was that 73% of consumers surveyed or researched a business online before making a purchase decision. And then even from that group, 17% surveyed or use social media for information about that business. So what does that mean to you as a business owner? That essentially tells you that before anyone is coming to your business, and that's regardless of if it's done online, whether it's a restaurant that you're running in the neighborhood, whether you are a contractor. People have kind of gotten, the general person has kind of gotten the idea that they would like to go to the website and gain some information. It's always been that way for a while, but we have data now that's showing that even the person who may not be quite so technical is trying to come to your website or try to come to some form of digital property about your business and learn something about you and then make a decision. So as a business owner, you want to use your web analytics basically as a form of some sort of intelligence tool. If the traffic's coming to one particular page on your site and that page is, let's say, just for argument's sake, apple pies, and then you're not getting quite so much traffic going to another page which may be peach cobblers. That difference may show up. You may see that in your bottom line because that traffic is almost like a canary in the mine to tell you exactly what maybe is on the customer's minds. So let's make some quick assumptions starting out here. And what I did is I tried to kind of go through this a little bit to show you how in your analytics where you should be starting in. So let's assume that, again, that you have your analytics on your website or in your blog. One of the things that you want to do is, again, you want to make sure that you have your IP for your location filtered out. And as you can see on screen there's a quick picture. This is something that you can go into any web analytics tool and you can put in the IP address or even a range of IP addresses if you're dealing with a number of locations. The value to your business is when you're looking at the data, you want to be able to look at data from visitors, not from, you don't really want to co-mix in visits that you may be doing to your website, or let's say if you have to do repairs to your website or some sort of modifications, you don't really want to count that towards your data. So you want to filter out the IPs. And then we're making assumptions that the page content reflects your products and services. Again, that example of apple pie versus cobbler. And that you filled out a lot of the descriptions that you have on your HTML code, your meta descriptions of what the page is. So that's kind of a very light assumption that we're making here, but you're starting out. So what's the first step you should do? One of the things I found in my experience is that when a business starts using Google Analytics or even any analytics tool, that they really haven't set what their goals are. Goals is a feature that typically appears in an analytics solution. It's meant to be an assumption of how you think visitors who are coming onto your website will navigate to a particular part of the web page of your website. And there's basically 4 different ways you can set goals. At least we'll look at this from Google Analytics, and there's some variations on this, but these are kind of the general ways that web analytics solution uses. You can have an economic goal. An economic goal provides a kind of an idea of what the value is when a customer reaches a particular page in your site. So if you have a registration page, that person you make the assumption that that person registers, that they may be a customer, they may want to subscribe, they may want to come visit your business. So you would set an economic goal, and that could be a value that you set just kind of as an idea of what that customer would typically spend. It could be an average number, just something that gives you an idea. A URL could be traffic leading to a particular page. And this could be something along the lines of, it's kind of tied in with the economic goal, but it just gives an idea of someone reaching a particular page. You can also have time on site to gauge the consistency of visitors spending time on your site. Now, time on site is very useful if you're running a blog. Let's say that you have a blog that is, you're trying to grow traffic and show to advertisers that people are engaged. Well, you can set a goal for time on site and show that people are staying pretty much staying on your web page for a consistent amount of time. I think if I remember correctly from Kissmetrics, I think the average time on site was something like 4 minutes. Actually, take that back, 190 seconds. So you can have a benchmark or idea or a set goal of saying, hey, I would like to have someone to spend so much time on my site. And then finally, you can have what's called event tracking. And this is relatively new to Google Analytics. I know Piwik has used this before. Event tracking is basically a tag that you would use for a download or basically for a particular activity on a page. It could be along the lines of a download of a PDF. It could be a plan very important that gives some information about your business. It can be a click button that you have for taking a particular action, or in web speak, event. And that's what event tracking is. And you can set that as part of a goal within your web analytics solution.
And Pierre, one question I have,
yes.
Just to clarify this, these goals, what that is what you're saying, I think, is that you can set these goals in your analytics tool as benchmarks. Does it alert you, or just go for 1 or 2 minutes more in this? Is this a goal you're setting in the tool, or a goal you're writing on paper saying, here's what I want? Just clarify that point for us.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it is a goal. It is something that you set within the analytics solution, and the idea is that this is something I think that a lot of small businesses miss initially, and the reason you want to set a goal is that it helps kind of guide a little bit of what actions you want to take with the data. You get a lot, as you probably well imagine, you get a lot of data in an analytics tool, but you're probably more interested in the data that would lead into specific actions on the website, and that's what goals will help you do. It actually will save you some time for any sort of reporting down the line, because you will set some goals that explain a little bit about what the site is for, that tie into a little bit about what the purposes are that you want from the website in terms of what will contribute to your business. So these are settings that you place within Google Analytics. And you want to set these, you really want to do these when you are setting up your website. If you haven't, I wouldn't say run into it now, but I would say you want to have these set. They're not retroactive, so you do want to set them, and then from going forward, see how that traffic is reaching a goal. And it's very simple. It's very simple to set the goals within Google Analytics solution. And I'll just touch upon this real quick. I won't go too deeply into this a little bit, because this is kind of a little bit on the steps. But again, within Google Analytics, you would basically label off in what was called a goal funnel, and you can probably see it right there on the image down the lower part. What you would do is basically name off like each step that you expect someone to take within your website. Now, one asterisk I'll add on to this, once you set a goal, you may find that traffic may take a different turn than what you expect. That's okay. The point of this is trying to set what you expect, and then try to have and from there, taking the steps necessary to make adjustments, if that makes a lot of sense. Okay? Let me go on to the next slide here just a little bit here, if I can. Okay, so let's say that you've set goals, and now that you start doing some marketing, and as you probably will aware, there's a lot of different sources where your traffic can arrive from. Again, we have tablets and iPads, Facebook likes and ads, which we'll talk a little bit about in a moment. Bookmarking sites where you may be submitting articles that you've written, may generate some interest that may lead back to your website. Mobile, which has become a huge player in the last few years and will continue to grow. Mobile search is a big deal. You may be using newsletters, email, and again, good old-fashioned social media will come into play as well. So with all these sources, the first question you may be asking yourself is, okay, how do you decide which is working for you? Well, this is where goals actually comes in and helps, is that now that you've set goals, now when you start going into these different type of traffic sources, you now have an idea of which sources are contributing most to your goals. And we're going to talk a little bit about features that will help you set up the breadcrumb between your traffic to those goals. The first that we're going to talk about just a little bit is a URL builder. And we're also going to mention about landing pages. So a URL builder, you may have not heard this before, but if you haven't, let's just do a quick review. This is basically a tag that you add to a URL, and that URL would be for maybe a landing page, This was originally used for pay-per-click. Way back when analytics was first thought about, the idea was to have SEO and then also pay-per-click to have some sort of form of search engine marketing, some way of tracking and discerning traffic coming from search versus traffic coming from a pay-per-click. But the good news is that URL builders can be used for a number of things. For example, you may have a print media that might lead to a landing page or a website. That landing page can also be tagged with a URL builder. You can use your UR codes, which are those funny little codes that you see maybe ad that shows the at the end of the presentation. If you haven't seen one before, I can call one up and show you real quick. A URL code, a UR code can be linked to a landing page, and again, that can also be used with URL Builder. Even blog posts, I've seen people in Twitter use a URL Builder for that. The whole purpose of this is to create some way of tagging such that when traffic comes through that particular medium, you now have a way of seeing where that traffic is coming from, and your analytics solution, you can kind of tie back to kind of make a connection between that source to the goal that you set within the analytics. Okay, and then one more quick point I want to bring up: landing pages. One of the mistakes I see with businesses today is that a lot of times they'll use URL Builder, but they won't come up with a landing page. A landing page is pretty important for a couple of reasons. Number one, a landing page has to tie into what the driver is for that URL builder. If you're using a pay-per-click ad, you might be advertising for a discount at your restaurant. And then if that person clicks on that ad and goes to a landing page, they should see a short description that ties into the ad. If it goes to a web page, that person may or may not understand how to collect on that discount, even if the web page is related to your business. So having a landing page is a great idea. A lot of times I've seen businesses take maybe a version of one of their pages and make a very short landing page out of it. The trick is just trying to make it tie into whatever that marketing is that you plan to do. And once you've done that, it'll make it a little bit easier for someone to come in, take a click, and decide and say, hey, this is worth my time to come in and do business with you.
Pierre, I just want to say that I think that is so important, Pierre, that landing pages, too many times, companies say 10 cents off or say 50%, and they take you to the front of their website. And so I think that's a great point. The other point I want to ask, landing URL, what you call it here, it's the page makers or page link makers it is. How do you make that? Is that an analytics tool? Is that a special tool? What is that? How do people make this?
Okay, that's a very good question. Usually with the analytics tool, there's usually an online builder. On the screen, I'm showing you one for a web analytics tool called Pewix. This is actually very similar to Google Analytics, actually. It's very popular for a lot of different sites. But each analytics tool has a URL builder. It's just basically a web page. And as you can see on the screen, there's a basically you put in your web URL, and then you kind of can put some parameters on there. You can put on the name of the campaign. You can have a name of the type of medium, which would be like a banner ad, a CPC. These are usually put in one at a time. So let me give you a quick tip here. If you have a number of campaigns, in advertising, what's been done is that people have pulled what's called pulled a spreadsheet and use concatenation, which is concatenate, which is basically to set up your cells to enter in key information, and then it will automatically create a URL tagged solution. So you'll see, so anytime you look at a web page, if you see like a www.mysite.com, then you see a / and then maybe a question mark, and then you might see something that says campaign equals, or for Google it might be UTM_campaign equals. That campaign equals, all that you see going into it is the tagging that that is creative. But every analytics solution has this feature. It's just an online feature that you use. Okay, and if you want a quick demonstration, I can do that after our presentation as well. Okay, let me touch a little bit about a new feature within Google Analytics and also how it can bring some value for your business. Just recently, Google has, in version 5, has introduced a social media plugin. This was made in response to the tremendous response to Google+. And I know that many of you probably have if you've been living underneath a rock, I can't help you. But but it's a new social media platform. About, if I remember figures correctly, something close to 20 million people have signed up within 9 months. So I think it was like one of the fastest growing networks in recent memory. And Google realized that with web analytics, the idea is that it's always based on a JavaScript put on some sort of web page. But that we're now changing in terms of how people share information, how people discover your business. We're going to talk a little bit more about that through the presentation. So they came up with a social media plugin. It automatically takes a look at whether or not you're getting traffic from Google+. There is a modification that can be done for Facebook likes and Twitter as well. And it's a modification very simple that you would see just you do for event tracking or custom variables. And then the reports that you get back are basically 3 types of reports. Engagement, which would show basically whether or not if there's if a piece of a page was shared using a Google plus button, a Facebook like button, or through Twitter, an action that was taken. And then we'll also show which pages received likes. So if you have just to give you a good example, if you're doing e-commerce and you have maybe 20 different goods, again, going back to apple pies, you can have apple pie, peach pie, apple peach pie, rhubarb. You might want to know which pages are receiving shares throughout Facebook, throughout Google+, throughout Twitter. It helps your business because you'll now know which social media is really responding and possibly discovering your website and consequently discovering your business. So this is a very significant feature that's come into play. So it's on the version 5 of Google Analytics. The good news is you do not have to go back. If you're using Google Analytics now, do not feel that you have to rush back and put it back on your website. You probably, if you look in the upper right, you'll see what's called old version, new version. New version is the version 5. So it's there automatically. If you're already using Google Analytics, you are in luck. Okay, so we talked a little bit about URL builders. We're talking a little bit about social media. We're going to talk a little bit about how you consider the traffic segments that's contributing to your websites and your goals. So the difference here is we're going to talk a little bit about something called segmentation. And you probably have heard this before. And the reason we talk about segmentation is that not everybody that comes to your website comes for the same reasons. We like to think so. I love to think that when someone comes to Zimana that everybody wants to have web analytics services, but that's not always true. So you want to have some way of helping to discern out the traffic a little bit. And the value to your business is by doing so, you start figuring out which channels that you could probably beef up a little bit more, which ones could probably have some adjustment, and maybe some others that maybe could be rethought a little bit. So let's get into that. One of the first areas that will help you is what's called a funnel report. Now, originally we talked about goals, and again, one of the first things you got to do is set your goals in Google Analytics. Well, the nice thing is once you do, you get to see a funnel report. The funnel report basically will show where people are, not just where they're starting in to get to your goal, but maybe it's almost like a leaky pipe. It's learning where people are coming out of your idea of how they should be navigating through your site. And it's a pretty straightforward report. It'll show exactly like where they've made, which pages they may have entered into before they get to the main page. To the right, it will show where they've exited to, and a lot of times it will show where, it can also show where they may be exiting to within the site. Sometimes you may have made an assumption that the person was supposed to start on the home page and go to page 2, but you may find that a lot of your traffic may be going to page 3. That might be okay, but it also may help you in terms of where you might want to highlight certain things differently. You may have a, going back again to the pie example, you may have a sidebar on recipes about apple pie or rhubarb pie. Might be better if if looking at your funnel analysis, you may have had it on page 3 and may prefer to put it on your home page. So that way it's more visible, and that way people can kind of might stay a little longer. That's how a funnel basically works and what it does to help you out. If you are losing traffic, there's a couple of things you can do. One of the things I've suggested to clients sometimes is they can modify some of the outbound links. Real quick on HTML, very light code that you can do. There's a HTML code that you add called target equals quotation blank quotation. And what that does is that you are basically having, instead of having them change, that basically allows that person to go to a different tab rather than leave the original page. Sometimes that's preferable. Although keep in mind this is more for if it's a desktop or maybe a laptop per se. If that doesn't work, you still find that you're losing people, that might be, that space where that funnel is losing people might be a great place to have a survey for ideas and for revising content. You may ask people, hey, did you find what you were looking for? If not, what were you expecting? That may be a great place to ask for a survey. And then it also may give you a good spot to maybe do what's called a multivariate or an A/B test. This is where you compare, you make a change to a website, maybe a group of changes, and you're trying to compare the performance of one versus the other. Again, that a funnel can give you some great, at least a funnel at minimum can show you where within your web navigation that that there may be a sticking point that may be keeping people from actually coming to your goal. Okay. So segmentation. Okay, this is the fun slides here. So real quick, and some of these are features that are pretty much standard across web analytics, and some of these you probably are familiar with. And if you haven't played around with them, definitely take time to do so. They're very easy, and I'll try to help you a little bit about what the thought process behind these, so that way it might tie into some ideas of how you're exposing your business online. The first we're going to get into is for traffic sources, and these you've probably seen before. Direct, which is our visitors who are coming to your site directly through the URL. Referral, which gets into sites and blogs that are sending traffic. And then, of course, search, which could be paid and non-paid. Now, you may be thinking, is there a particular order where one of these is more valuable than the other? It really depends on what your goals are. Direct is pretty valuable because, and it's very nebulous, but for the most part, it's basically someone has seen your URL someplace. It could have been on a business card. It could have been on some sort of ad. It could have been on a sign. Ideally, you probably would have had it linked to the landing page, but if you haven't, that's okay. You might be a direct can show that there's some interest in your site, and you can make some combinations. We'll get into that just for a moment, where you can kind of discern a little bit about where people may be interested. Referral is helpful if you have a marketing strategy that is heavy on exposure through different sites and blogs. Let's say that you are writing for different small business blogs and trying to get more exposure and trying to establish yourself as the expert. You may find out that through referrals that you may be getting some constant traffic from that site, from the effort that you're writing into it. That might be valuable to you. Those referrals could be that referral traffic could help you decide to continue writing or maybe try to do something a little bit different. Search, of course, is basically, search can be very valuable, but it also be very tricky. Search has always been this has always been the big thing you see online. Everyone talks about SEO and being on top of a SERP. Very helpful, but the idea is that search, most people have the mindset that they're trying to solve a particular problem. There's not as much branding on the search as what you would get with direct in a lot of cases. That doesn't mean that search is not valuable. It just means that if you're having, it depends on what you're trying to do within your plan. Search is very valuable for, again, if you know that you're offering something that may be solving a particular pain point for customers, great. But keep in mind that you still might want to have maybe more direct, more branding. You might have more referrals to help you engage with customers even further. So again, you want some sort of balance if possible. Other ideas, new versus returning. Again, these are visitors who are new to your website versus those who are returning. This is pretty valuable if depending on what you're trying to do within your website. New might be great if you are starting out and you're just trying to get a number of new visitors coming in. Returning might be great if you have a B2B site and you're trying to figure out what content is having people return back to learn a little bit more about your site. You could use it maybe as the touchstone, as a way of maybe in the whole sales cycle trying to figure out, what can we do to, what can we offer that will have people return and eventually become not just returning visitors, but maybe even somewhere within the sales cycle actually come in and call. So there's some value there as well. Geography. Showing where the marketing was targeted. In every web analytics, you have a map overview. Very helpful. The map overview helps to basically straightforward, helps to tell you where people are coming from. You can combine that with some of the direct search or the referral to get an idea of which regions people are coming from. I've done for a client where we used direct and a map overlay to figure out if they really were getting people within just the Midwest. So there's a combination there that might be helpful to you. The value that could be in terms of making an adjustment on your marketing. We're in very tight times. We may be thinking that, hey, we've got to figure out where we can market much more effectively. The direct might be a spot where there might be some geography or some areas where the direct, they've seen your ads before but may not have quite come in. You can make that combination and kind of help, think about a little bit about where you might want to adjust some of your marketing, particularly if you're using a pay-per-click or even if you're using ads. Groups of keywords and phrases, very helpful if you have a blog that's integrated within your website. This is if you are using something like GoDaddy or Fat Cow. You may have a blog that is hosted at the same spot where your website is, and you're writing content for it. If you're doing that, you're going to attract some search based on keywords. So there may be groups of keywords that have drawn people to your site. And finally, you have custom variables. And this is basically a JavaScript. I didn't write this out just for convenience, basically, but this is basically a JavaScript code, very similar to event tracking, meant to basically divide visitors from one action versus from one action taken on a page versus those who don't take the action on a page. Very good for something like, for example, membership, where somebody may have to log in. So now you may have a goal on time on site. You can combine that with custom variables and say, okay, for the people who are logged in, are they reaching the goal that you intended versus the ones who are not? And that might help set some questions off if it doesn't give you some full answers off the top. Okay. And feel free, if you have questions, feel free to type them away as we're going on here. So let's see. So we talked a little bit about segmentation. Again, let's go back, talking about goals, setting them, talking about different sources for traffic that could come to your website. Talked a little about segmentation, which helps you to kind of see how to divide the data up. Now you're looking at the data, you're trying to wonder what you'd be looking for. Well, I try to keep this very simple. A lot of this is going to really be based on the type of business you do, but in general, you want to try to look for trends. Most analytics practitioners, what they try to do is look for trends in data. And that could be trends in visits, average time on site, a bounce rate, which if you don't know what a bounce rate is, real quick, a bounce rate basically is when someone comes onto one page and they leave that page without looking at any other pages within the website. Whether it's a negative or not really depends upon what you were trying to do with that site. If you're looking for people to come through and navigate through the website, having a high bounce rate may not be a great idea. Blogs tend to have high bounce rates only because people tend to come in, they may look at one particular article and then leave out. Anywhere from 40 to 60% is considered a decent range for a bounce rate. Higher than that, you may want to look at what's going on in terms of navigation or in terms of interest within content. But the point is, don't get too excited about one number versus the other. Look for trends. Look for things that are, as you're doing your marketing, look for trends if it's giving you some sort of lift. You want to look for things that give you a lift above your SEO base level performance. In other words, you've launched your website, you've done your SEO, you've done as much of the SEO work as you need to do. Now you're doing your marketing. You're trying to figure out which marketing is maybe giving you lift or giving you help in areas that your SEO could not cover. And that's
Pierre, just for those who don't know, SEO is search engine optimization. Most people know, but I just wanted to clarify that word. Please go ahead. We're doing great.
Thank you. And then one more trick I'm going to share with you, and this is something I learned along the way, is when you examine data, definitely look for trends under different time periods. I'll give you a really good example. I had one of my clients had a very popular blog and had a very hard time trying to discern her sources of traffic and sources that were affecting her marketing. And one of the reasons that was very difficult was because it was very difficult to kind of get a trend within even a month. So we had to go back and look almost, not quite a year, but it almost took that long. There was a very discernible trend on some of the traffic from one of the segments. So play around with the lengths of time. That can help you in seeing if there's a trend. Sometimes it doesn't always come within the 30-day period. If you're just doing SEO and you're trying to see how that runs for you, usually it may take as much as 3 months in some cases to really kind of get caught on. But the one thing you don't want to do with it, you want to look for trends mostly. You don't want to get too caught up with just getting to one particular number or one particular spot. You just want to look for trends that are that are telling you whether you need to market differently or if which leads to the last point here, or next to the last point. Again, your dashboard can now be set up to help you monitor your site, and this is really what you want. The dashboard, it's very straightforward. It's just like a dashboard in a car. You don't know every piece of technology that's working in an automobile. You don't pay attention to how the gas is being mixed with the air to create the combustion within the engine or how the transmission is shifting gears, but you do have a few gauges in front of you that tell you how your automobile works. And your dashboard should be the same. Now, in most web analytics solutions, they're set up in such a way where it should be set up to really how your goals are set up. You can set alerts so that way you're not coming back and looking at the data every day. A lot of times people do that, and it's not, to be honest with you, it's not a value add to do that every day. You do want to make periodic times check, and those periodic times are going to be really based on how you're marketing. If you are doing pay-per-click, some sort of printed ads, if you're doing expos, if you're doing appearances, let the amount of activity dictate to you how frequently that you're checking. A lot of advertising agencies, they do checking at least once a week, but that's because they're doing ads every week. And then final note, you can use spreadsheets. And this is a little bit more advanced. I'll share with you just real quickly what they're about. What companies tend to do is that they'll pull data from maybe a Google Analytics, maybe from Facebook, maybe from a number of different sources within the company, and then pull that within a spreadsheet. Any analytics solution should allow you to do that. There should be some sort of export to CSV in the solution. Most do, but you want to make sure that you check on any solution that you use. Because even if you're starting off simply using Google Analytics, there's going to be a point where your business will grow, and you may want to have somebody able to export data and do it in such a way that makes it easier for whoever may be doing the analytics for you. Okay. Real quick, optimization. We're going to go through this real quick to keep us on time here. Optimization takes time and imagination. And what I mean by this is just basically the ideas that you'll get to optimize your sites. It's going to be based off how your business operates, but there's a lot of different options that are out there. Keywords. Everyone knows Google has AdWords. It has a great tool for looking at competitive keywords. But I'll give you a little secret. Microsoft has a very good ad center, has some very good keyword tool that will allow you to go through and make some comparisons. One of the things I liked about it was you were able to take a look at a website, pull off some keywords, and then actually can come back with an estimate of what a pay-per-click would be using based off of those words very, very quickly. It's very easy. Definitely check it out if you haven't. If your budget is limited, consider maybe some targeted pay-per-click in different networks other than just Google. Let me explain how this works. You've heard of Facebook ads, and some people don't know this, but Yelp has ads as well. Those may be great if you're running something, and Facebook ads operate differently from Google in the sense that where Google works off of a keyword, and the same thing for off of Microsoft. Facebook ads are based off of lifestyle. So whatever lifestyle is in a profile of a Facebook user, that ad will pop up. That might be a different way of reaching people, basically, is what I'm saying. For B2B, you may have LinkedIn, and LinkedIn and business.com have pay-per-click ad areas. So you may want to think about maybe something short, targeted, around a particular event to help drive traffic. And again, with the landing page too. Social media. We're going to talk about this real quick. Twitter. If you're finding that you want to figure out some other way of reaching people, think about using a hashtag. There's some hashtags that might be that have gotten enough use where it draws an audience. Let me give you a real good example. In analytics, there's a hashtag called measure, where a lot of practitioners use. If you're developing a software that was geared for analytics, you might want to use that hashtag frequently as another way of reaching out to people. So use that as some sort of complement. You can use social media search engines also to discover topics that people are using. I've named 3 here in the PowerPoint. 48ers is a really good one. Currently is a really great one because it breaks down between Twitter and Facebook, so you can kind of see what the topics are that are trending. Social Mention is a really good one as well too. And then the other thing I would tell you is that if you are struggling with some of the marketing, take a look at the channels that you're using and kind of try to use and remind customers of which channels that you are using the most frequently to let them know how to engage you. Sometimes it's not, we think that it's about trying to be everywhere online. Sometimes it's not always about that. Sometimes it's about trying to pick some channels and being consistent enough where customers can reach you and engage you. These sort of steps are meant to augment and help if you are kind of stuck in figuring out some other ways of reaching your customers and trying to figure some other ways of generating traffic to your site and generating some analytics data. Okay. So some quick keep in minds, as we talked about, SEO, search engine optimization, is a baseline, very useful, but again, there are many ways for customers to engage, basically to engage and discover your business digitally. So develop your goal when you use web analytics. That's probably it's maybe one of the easiest things to do, but it's also one of the most important as well. And you'll start looking at your website much differently as being a part of your business, being an essential part. And if you do any sort of digital marketing plan, it requires an investment of some time, and maybe a little bit of money or some balance of both to trying to get those and trying to figure out some sort of way of making some sort of breadcrumb to discern which marketing is working for you. And then this is my own slogan: delays damages discovery. In other words, don't let your analytics sit. The value that you get out of the value you get out of anything online really depends on how you use it. It's kind of a very interesting notion, and we'll save that for another time. But for the most part, review all your marketing. If you're really very busy trying to hustle and get your business growing, treat it as a quarterly event to sit down and go through over the last quarter what you've done, what has worked for you, and maybe what could be adjusted. And you'll find that there may be some ideas in there that you probably haven't had a chance to think about for your business or to apply for your business. And so remember, periodic reviews with your web analytics data, it's going to reveal exactly what was working for you and for your customers. And with that, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for your patience in sitting down talking with me. I know we've covered quite a bit in a 40-minute format, but I'm happy to take any questions that you have. Please type away.
And Pierre, thank you very much. Resounding round of applause. And again, I apologize for the noise in the background here, but this was a great presentation, Pierre. I know in 45 minutes we can't learn everything. And I just have one or two questions, but I must say, Pierre, one thing is, besides hiring you, which I know people can do to help them do everything you said, what are one of the first or two steps you would say to people who want to start to use some of the comments you gave today? What should they do? If you had to say step one, step two, what should they do right now as they're getting ready to, to leave the webinar and go back to analytics? What should they do?
I think I would say if they haven't set goals, do goals. That's probably the biggest one. I know that was the easiest one. And I would say I would definitely look at, if I had to pick one particular thing for web analytics, I definitely would look at what his, I would say be more cognizant of what you're using it for your marketing. Definitely start thinking about what has worked for you in the past to generate some of your traffic. If you haven't gotten the idea yet, set a goal, and even after a week or two, go back and look at some of the data and see what has been working. That's probably one of the easiest things they could do at this point. That would make a difference.
Okay, and I know, thank you for that comment that I speak too fast, Nancy. Pierre, can you see the questions there? If you can just quickly go over them. Can you see those questions in your screen in the questions tab?
I'm trying to see if I can see this.
Let me read them to you. So, one question was, you had mentioned about exporting, and Amy asked this, was the export to CSV for the spreadsheet? This is a few slides back. Does that ring a bell to you?
Yes, it does. Yes, that is for the spreadsheet. That's for the spreadsheet. You'll find that most analytic tools, and this is kind of most analytic tools, most of the designs have really they really will allow you to export your data. They are, and you should be able to do that for free. The data is yours. It's for your business. It's for your analysis. I can think of one solution that actually, I'll say, I won't mention names, but I know one that actually will let you have to actually pay to actually export, which I don't think is fair, but that is for your spreadsheet. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pierre. We have one more question. This is from Michelle Darden. Pierre, can you please elaborate on the custom variable for reviewing traffic sources?
Okay, all right. A custom variable basically is a JavaScript code. It's very much like it's pretty much a, you'll see I probably have to write this out to kind of show this makes me on screen. It's basically a Java. You'll find that some of the features particularly with Google and Yahoo Analytics are pretty much our JavaScript, and it's usually like it's a light modification to the code itself. It's usually added right at maybe into the Google Analytics script. In this case, you would have like a _GAQ.PUSH and then a set custom variable. And there's 3 different versions of it. You have like one is called like page, session, and visitor. The differences are basically just in terms of when the variable is counted. The best approach I would take for custom variable, if you're not comfortable with JavaScript, is just think about the name that you want to give for the custom variable, and then maybe what's called a value. A value, they usually allow a value, in this case for Google, I'll give you a quick example, like 1 to 5. Let's say if you were trying to figure out between a member, someone who's signed up, who's a member of your site, versus someone who's a non-member. You can assign a value of 1 for member and 2 for non-member, if that makes any sense. But there is, if you go into, for Google Analytics, there is a IQ area that will allow you to go through and take a look of different examples of how to use custom variables. And then there's also a couple of books. One book I would recommend is called Performance Marketing. And this is from Justin Cutrone, Khalid Whitmore, and Sebastian Tonkin. Performance Marketing with Google Analytics. That's actually, it's a really, really good book. I highly recommend it. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pierre. And Pierre, now, how can I know you have it on the beginning slide, but what is your website? Is it Zimana.com, I think, or what is your entire website?
It is Zimana.com. That is the website.
Okay.
So if you type in Zimana in Google, you'll find me there. I'm also on Twitter. I probably should have had that on the hand sheet, so I do apologize. Zimana Analytics is my Twitter handle. You can always feel free to reach out and contact me there as well. And then my email address is pdebois@zimana.com.
And we'll have this in archive anyhow, so those of you who are on the call, we'll have this in a blog post in a few days as well. But Pierre, I think this has been great information. I mean, analytics, intelligence about what we're doing in this online world is critical. And thank you for joining us this evening. And thanks to all of you for your questions. Thank you, Michelle and Amy, and Nancy, and I can go on. Thank you all so much. And Pierre, have a great evening, and I look forward to the next time we talk to you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure, and thank you, everyone, for listening to me. I really do appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thank you.